This is TWiT.
Before we get all choked up and weepy-eyed over WD's willingness to help their MyBook NAS users, we need to note that a much larger group of WD users, those who are still using the MyCloud OS3 edition, which was built into WD's newer MyCloud NAS devices, are today in trouble. It turns out that all MyCloud OS3 devices, which is, a newer set of devices, the MyCloud is what they were offering to trade their the live users up to. The OS5 is where they are now. OS3 has a problem. Turns out that all of the MyCloud OS3 devices contain a serious remote code execution flaw, and that, wouldn't you know it, OS3 is no longer supported. This came to light when a pair of intrepid security researchers, and actually several other groups, were all planning to present their discoveries of these problems with Western Digital's current cloud devices during late last year's Pwn to Own competition in Tokyo back in November. They all had the rug pulled out from them when 5 days prior to the Pwn to Own competition, WD released the completely rewritten MyCloud OS5, just before, as I said, 5 days before the competition date. Being a complete rewrite, OS5 inherently eliminated the bugs that these multiple researchers had hoped to cash in on. Since the ground rules for Pwn to Own require that qualifying software must be the most current, the flaws in OS3, which had then been obsoleted, were no longer prizeworthy. Of course, as we all know too well, the fact that OS5 appeared doesn't spontaneously cause all of the OS3s out in the world to be updated to the OS5 firmware. And in fact, it appears that not all of the WD hardware that runs OS3 will even run OS5. And that WD has a list of those hardware platforms that will. And even if it did, OS5's complete rewrite, turns out, left out a number of OS3's more popular features. So if WD users of OS3-based MyCloud devices even knew of the trouble with their current firmware and wished to update, WD would be asking those customers, if they were able to update, given the hardware they have, to accept a feature downgrade in order to repair a previous, apparently badly broken, and now out of support OS. Once again, while WD certainly has the legal right to do whatever they wish with their customers, it's not the best way to earn and maintain a reputation for standing behind one's products throughout their entire useful service life. If MyCloud devices were sold under the condition that, for example, they would run for exactly 5 years and then self-destruct, it seems unlikely that many people would choose that solution, though that's essentially what has happened here. In any event, earlier this year in February, which is a few months after Pwn to Own was going to happen, that research team who was getting ready to release this published a detailed YouTube video which documents how they discovered this chain, again, a chain, Leo, as you said, a chain of weaknesses that allows an attacker to remotely update a vulnerable device's firmware to add a malicious backdoor using a low-privileged user account having a blank password. Tens of thousands of devices appear to be vulnerable to that attack today. So, before the Pwn to Own competition, there appears to have been some sort of communication mix-up because the researchers said that WD had never responded to any of their reports. Curious about that, Brian Krebs apparently asked WD what the story was, and he was told, get this, quote, "The communication that came our way confirmed the research team involved planned to release details of the vulnerability and asked us to contact them with any questions. We didn't have any questions."
We don't have any questions.
So we didn't respond.
Well, there's your mistake. I have some questions now.
Really? That's what you're going with, WD?
That's really
You didn't answer because they said only call us if you don't have any questions.
Any questions?
And so then the WD continued, "Since then, we have updated our process and respond to every report."
Yes.
Even those that we don't have any questions about.
It seems like a good idea.
In order to avoid any such miscommunication like this again.
It does sound like they've learned their lesson a little bit, I have to say. They took a lot of pain here.
Yeah. They said, "We take reports from the security research community very seriously and conduct investigations as soon as we receive them, even if we don't mention it." Right. So, and Brian added that Western Digital ignored questions, apparently from him, about whether the flaw found by the researchers had ever been addressed in OS3. So they're still ignoring questions that they don't want to answer. Brian reports that a statement published on WD's site dated March 12, 2021, says that the company will no longer provide further security updates to the MyCloud OS3 firmware. Quote, "We strongly encourage moving to the MyCloud OS5 firmware," the statement reads, "if your device is not eligible for upgrade to MyCloud OS5. We recommend that you upgrade to one of our other MyCloud offerings that support MyCloud OS5. And we should note that these WD NAS gadgets are not cheap. They weigh in around $500. So telling their users who are stuck with OS3 for whatever reason to upgrade to other WD offerings that support MyCloud OS5 might be asking quite a lot. In order to save some of the value from all of their research, the team developed and researched their own patch to fix the vulnerabilities they had found in OS3. Unfortunately, the patch needs to be reapplied whenever the MyCloud device is rebooted, since it will be returned to its previous unpatched and vulnerable state. Western Digital told Brian that they were aware of third parties offering security patches for MyCloud OS3, but of course they couldn't stand behind them in any way. So none of this is really confidence-inspiring, once again, and NAS devices in general appear to be perennially troubled. You know, I love my Drobos, but no way would I ever consider exposing them to the public internet. They are permanently linked to each other through SyncThing, both safely tucked away behind multiple layers of NAT routing. And I was thinking about this. If I had to expose a NAS to the public internet, I would use a well-maintained Ubuntu Linux running Nextcloud. And boy, if you haven't, take a look at nextcloud.com/secure. If you want to see some guys who have really gone way over the top with security. They have multiple code audits and security reviews, and even, get this, a live video verification option as part of their remote authentication process. You have to, get on TV and say, "Hi, Mom, it's really me, see?" And then you qualify for folder sharing. So anyway, we do see NAS devices as quite a problem. And I ought to also mention, if you do have some need to have a MAS on your network, you should arrange for it to be very much like my PHP server is at GRC, completely isolated from the rest of your network. You may need to get to it, but don't let it get to you. You know, you could put a NAT router between it and the rest of your network so that your network can see it, but it can't see your network, because, you know, this just seems to be a hard thing to get right.